Welcome back to Cozy Rosy Crochet. It's great to have you here with me today as we're going into the second square in the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along. Today's square is the Offset Trinity stitch square, and this super squishy square is going to become a firm favourite with you. Don't forget, before we get started, to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and of course that notification bell so that you never miss out on another one of my crochet tutorials again. So the materials that you're going to need to complete your own Offset Trinity stitch square is any Aran weight yarn or any worsted weight yarn. I'm using my favourite, of course, which is PaintBox Yarns Simply Aran. This is a size 4 yarn, and this shade is shade number 242. I am a huge fan of this Trinity stitch, and I cannot wait to show you how I've worked it. But you're going to need some yarn, and of course you're going to need your 5mm crochet hook. This is my Furls wooden streamline, one of my absolute favourites. You are of course going to need a pair of scissors and a darning needle to weave in any ends and gather all those materials because we're going to get started. I'm going to start by making a slip knot and placing that onto our hook, and then we're just going to make a chain of 31. So we're going to yarn over the hook, bring our hook through the loop on our hook to start our chain, and continue to do that for a total of 31 chains. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 31. So make sure you've got your chain of 31. We're going to start by working 1 single crochet into the second chain from hook. Remember, this loop doesn't count. There's our first chain, and we're working into that second one, and we place 1. So we work 1 single crochet into that first chain, and then we're going to work the start of our Trinity stitch. So the Trinity stitch is worked across 3 stitches, but we do put the first part of the Trinity stitch into the stitch we've just worked into. So we start by inserting our hook into the same space where we never normally insert our hook. So we insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over, bring a loop up, then we insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, bring a loop up. Then we do the same into the third stitch as well. Yarn over, bring a loop up. So we should have 4 loops on our hook, and then we yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. We then chain 1 and we repeat the Trinity stitch again. So this time we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we just worked our last part of the last Trinity stitch into. So we insert our hook, yarn over, bring a loop up, insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, bring a loop up, do the same again, so yarn over, insert, bring your loop up, and yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We finish with a chain 1. We're going to continue to repeat that all the way down this chain, so we'll do another couple together. So here's where we worked our last stitch, so we insert our hook in there, bring our loop up, insert our hook into the next chain, bring our loop up, and insert our hook into the next chain, bring our loop up, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. And we finish with that chain 1. So this creates a really textured stitch, but it comes to life when you work the next row. So let's do another Trinity stitch together. So we insert the hook, bring a loop up, insert our hook into the next chain, bring a loop up, and to the next chain, bring another loop up, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. Don't forget to do your chain 1 after you've finished your Trinity stitch, and just continue to repeat that the whole way down your chain. When you reach the end of your chain, you're going to have 1 chain remaining, and I'm going to meet you there. So continue to work into that previous stitch and then into the next 2 chains, yarning over, pull through all 4 loops and then chain 1. And I'll meet you just for the finish of that row. So I've worked my final chain 1 and I have 1 chain remaining, and I'm just going to place 1 single crochet into that last chain. So at the end of row 1, you should have a total of 2 single crochets, 1 at each end, and then you should have 14 Trinity stitches. So for row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So that means that we're going to work 1 single crochet into the stitch underneath that chain 1, and then we're ready to start working our Trinity stitch again. First part of our Trinity stitch into this stitch we've just worked into. So we insert our hook, bring a loop up, and then we're going to insert our hook into that chain space between those stitches, and then finally we insert it into the top of our Trinity stitch, which is just here. That gives us our 4 loops. We're going to yarn over, pull through all 4, and then chain 1. We then insert our hook into the base of that stitch we've just worked into, back into that chain space, and then into the top of our Trinity stitch. There's our chain 1, here's our Trinity stitch, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and chain 1 to close. So we insert our hook into the stitch we've just worked into that chain space, and then into the top of our Trinity stitch, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. We're just going to repeat that the whole way down, working back into the stitch we've just worked into our chain space, and into the top of our previous Trinity stitch, pull through all 4 loops, and chain 1. So continue to work that all the way down to the end of this row, and I'll meet you back for our last stitch of row 2. So once you've done your final chain 1, you should have 1 stitch remaining, and we're just going to work 1 final single crochet in the top of the single crochet from the previous round. We're going to repeat this stitch pattern the whole way up our square, so we just continue to repeat row 2 for a total of 24 rows. We've already done 2 of them, so we just need to do it for a further 22 times to get our total of 24 rows. Once you've done that, come on back and we're going to work our edging to complete our project. So I've got my 24 rows here, and what we're going to do now is to work a single crochet edging all the way around to give this square a really nice finish. If you haven't had a squish of your square yet, I don't know why, because it is super squishy and I'm absolutely in love with this texture. Again, this is another of a reversible stitch, and I just simply love it. Now this is called the offset stitch, and the reason it's offset is because it's not done in the normal way, but as you can see, it's created these perfect lines of each of these Trinity stitches, whereas normally they actually look like they're on more of a diagonal. I prefer it like this, so I hope that you do too. But let's get this edging finished off. So we've worked that last single crochet, and we start by making a chain 1, and we're going to turn our work and work 1 single crochet into the top of each stitch across. So that will give us a stitch count, and each stitch and each chain space across, and that will give us a stitch count of 24 at the end of this row. So I'll meet you at this corner once you've worked your 24 single crochets. Just working my final single crochet into the top of that single crochet from the previous row, and we're going to create a little mini corner by creating a chain 1 and then single crocheting into that same stitch again. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into the end of each row. So that's 1, there's the next one, there's the next one. Now because you've done 24 rows, we should be able to do 24 single crochets down the side of this square. So just continue to work that all the way down, and I'll meet you in the next corner. So I've reached my final stitch in that row. I have a stitch count of 24 down this side as well. I'm going to chain 1 and then work another single crochet into that same stitch that I've just worked the last one into. Ready to work back along the edge of my starting chain, making sure that we get all of those chains because we still want a stitch count of 24. It's those ones that are hiding underneath the Trinity stitch. They're going to be a little bit more tricky to find. You just see it under there. So work all of those and I'll meet you at the next corner. So I've reached the space where my original starting slip knot was. So I'm going to work my corner in there. So I work a single crochet, a chain 1 and a further single crochet. I'm going to try and work over this end as well, because that will help so there's even less yarn to weave in at the end. And again, working up the final side of our square, we're going to work 1 single crochet into the end of each row, which again is going to give us a stitch count of 24. So that all of our sides of our square are going to be the same number of stitches. We've got 24 stitches across the top, the bottom and both the sides. So I'm back to where I first turned my work. So I'm going to work 1 single crochet, work my chain 1 in that final space, and then I'm just going to slip stitch through the first single crochet that we made in that when we turned, and we're ready to fasten off. So I'm going to just do a little chain 1 and then snip, leaving enough to weave in later, and then just use my hook to pull that through. And apart from this last end, that one's already woven in, our square is complete. I would love to know what you're thinking of this offset stitch pattern. Isn't it just truly squishy? Don't forget to get those ends woven in today. Don't delay, get them done. And I will see you again for our next square in the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along tomorrow.